Hello and welcome to this config walkthrough video for our smart hose resource. So we've recently updated this resource to introduce dynamic ropes, decals on the floor, improved pressure system and much more. And in this video I'm going to walk you through that. So the config for smart hose partly overlaps with that of supply line, given the resource comes hand in hand. So it's likely that you'll notice that as you're configuring it for your resource, for your community or server. So this time, with our hose resource, it works based on keys and interactions with the vehicle, rather than commands. As you can see here in-game, I've got press E to grab hose. So this key set here with the interact key, I'll pull the hose out. And as you can see then on screen, I've got the hose type, which I can switch to foam, and that'll be the G key. So that's pretty self-explanatory. We then got the shoot key, the key to drop the hose, which is E right now. Pick it up again. Let's pick up one, and then increase pressure and decrease pressure, which you can see on my screen there as the arrow keys. So the FiveM controls list is the place to go really to get the numbers for these, which I'll just show. And if you just head to this link, it should give you all the numbers you need. So next up, we've got the hose model, which I won't recommend changing this. This is the one that we've included in the resource. But if for some reason you did have a custom model for your server, this would be where you do it. The enable positioning command is pretty much how you find this position. So you see where the rope's connected to there. We've got a whole separate video on this, but I'll give you a quick rundown on it if I just store the hose. So the find hose positioning command essentially helps you find the offset value of a vehicle using a football. As I've said, I've got a whole separate video which is linked in our documentation website, but you essentially find the position using arrow keys, page up, page down, and then you press enter and you get the offset values in your console, which I'll explain further on. Next, we've got the job check section. So if you enable permissions here, it will essentially use one of these. We've got ACE permissions. So to use the hose is just the use hose permission. And there's plenty of guides online showing you how to use ACE permissions. We've got ESX permissions here where you can set your jobs. So if you want to add more jobs, it would be like this, please. We've got VRP permissions. So for VRP, we've got either jobs or just standard permissions. You can add your own here. We've just set these by default. Same for QB Core, and we're also providing integration with QBX. Next up, we got the translation section. This essentially allows you to change the resource into another language, and we do encourage users to share their translations with other people on our Discord server, just to help them out really. So Smart Hose has integration with many different custom notification systems, including QB Core, QBX, ESX, and VRP. So you can just turn this on, whichever one you really want to use. Or just turn it on and leave all of these false to use the base game notifications, which appear here on top of the map. So next, by default, when you interact with the truck, you're just interacting with the base game 3D text. So you see here, comes up with the press E to grab hose. You can change this. Instead of having draw text, we can have a screen prompt, a world interaction, or a third eye resource, including QB target and OX target. And we are planning to integrate more of these in the future. Now, here we get down to the rope section. So the rope initial length is the initial length of the rope that you see when I press E to grab that. As you can see, it is probably quite long initially. So if this is too long for your server or community, then I mean that could be pretty much changed to your liking. Next, we've got the maximum length. So 1,000 meters is quite long, and you may want to set this to maybe 40 or 50, depending on how realistic your server is and how it is in real life for you. So next, draw marker. So this is, if we drop the hose, you can see that we've got a 3D text there, and that's the marker. And then we've got the various different animations, which we've actually linked to a website where you can view all the different FiveM animations and change that to your preference. So next we get down to the vehicle settings part. So this is where you're going to set up vehicles for use with smart hose, and these are the different attachment points. So we've got X, Y, and Z, which is relative to the vehicle. So that's one attachment point on the fire truck, and that's in a second one. So whichever one I'm closest to, when I pull the hose out, would be that one. So rear mount has 2 as well, so I was closest to this side, so it's connected my hose to that side, but if I was that side, it would have done the same. And then max ropes per vehicle. So by default, a fire truck in-game can only have 2 ropes connected to it at once. You can override this here, maybe set fire truck to 3 or the engine to 4. And this doesn't mean that more than that amount of players cannot pull a hose out. They can still get the hose out, it just won't have a rope attached to it. And this is for resource performance and efficiency for your server. We're trying to maximize that and reduce any overheads on your server. Next, we've got the decool section. So the decals are the water and the foam effect, which you see here. We've got the initial pressure, so that's 0.5, the maximum pressure, and then the lowest possible pressure if I used my arrow key down lots of times. The pressure increment, how quickly it goes up or goes down when I press the arrow key, so you could have it to jump up in 0.5s instead of 0.1. And then the decal life, so this is how long it stays on the floor for, and we've got that to 20. Next, the water tank section. Now this slide does slightly overlap with the fire supply line resource, but this is where you need to add your trucks if you want them to work with smart hose. This part is all optional, the vehicle offsets. You don't even need to touch this part, but this part you do need to touch. So you need to add him in here and set a value. Even if you're not using fire supply line, just put 0. But this is where you would set up the tank size. And then all of this is to do with fire supply line. As I did say, we do have a slight overlap, which is quite important given the resources are heavily integrated together. Now our documentation page explains this whole video in writing. So if you want it at a slightly slower pace, either rewatch this video or go through our documentation. If you need any help with configuring this resource or setting it up, reach out to our support team after firstly reading our documentation. Our support team can be reached at support.londonstudios.net. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope you enjoy using the Smart Hose by London Studios.